Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Thursday, it is 9 p.m. GMT, which means yes, it is time for another GOGCast. So, before continuing on, I'd firstly like to thank everybody for joining us for the GOGCast. I'd also like to take a moment to remind people,
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
I've completely screwed that up because I had my audio on in the background and I can hear the stream live. Excellent start to the podcast. Right, so before continuing, I'd like to take a moment just to remind people that they can find all of their GOG-related information by typing in GOG.com into all your favourite social media outlets. Now, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and even Instagram. Yes, that's right, GOG.com also have an Instagram account. I'm not quite sure why, but they've got one. And also don't forget, for all your Twitch-related updates, please check out GOG.com Twitch on Twitter. Now, this will give you all of the latest information about our wonderful streams and streamers as and when they happen. Of course, don't forget the core ethos of GOG, games that are free from digital rights management and a complete games library, games boutique, should I say, stocked with over 1,300 DRM-free games, ranging from stuff like time-honoured classics like the original Wing Commanders, Ultima Underworld, Tex Murphy games, to my personal favourites like Planescape Torment and Little Big Adventure, and even some modern classics like Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and Kerbal Space Program. So, kicking things off, we will go over what we're going to discuss tonight. After introducing our guests, if I can just show you the running order right here. After introducing our guests, we will be going through what's recently been released on GOG. After talking about all the releases, we'll move on to what each of us has been playing and generally descend into a nerding frenzy. Following on from that, we'll be answering your questions taken from Twitter. Now, don't forget that if you want to ask a question during the show, you can in chat during this segment, and we'll try our hardest to answer them. Failing that, we will always answer questions asked via Twitter through GOG.com Twitch and using the hashtag GOGCast. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce some of our guests. So, we will hit the intro video and then we will start rocking and rolling. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 2 of the GOGcasts. Sorcerer Kings on Nuclear Thrones. For some reason we have titles, I'm not quite sure why. I have now unmuted my Skype participants and I'd just like to thank everybody for joining me. Right, so going around the virtual table, if I can point in the right direction because my webcam is flipped and I'm not quite sure why. Joining me, we have MegapiemanPHD. Hello, MegapiemanPHD.
Well, hello, sir. How are you doing this fine feathered day?
I'm very well, thank you, my good man. And may I say what a smashing monocle you're wearing.
Well, thank you.
Joining us also is ArvanEleron, also known as Gregory Wilson. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Hello, peoples. And yes, Pi looks... You shouldn't see what Pi's actual avatar in Skype is. What you guys are seeing is much nicer. I'm just saying.
No one can see the Pi's true form. That's the problem. No one
exactly.
can see it.
No one can hear you scream on the internet, yes.
Yeah. Also joining us is Mr. Classicor himself, needing no real introduction. Hello, Classicor.
hello. I'm actually scared by these people right now, but that's just side note.
That's okay, I'm scared by me most days. And also our very special guest, we are joined by Chris Bischoff, actually half of the development team behind the game STASIS. Hello, Chris. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's good to be here.
Lovely stuff. Right, so if I can just get the running order up, I'm just making sure that the stream is actually working at the moment because I'm a professional and that's what I do after the podcast has started. Let's get our running order up. So we've got a number of games that have basically been released recently or in the last week, pretty much. So we're going to go through them and kind of talk about them. So we've got the is it the Stardock releases? Is it the Galaxy Civilization games?
Yeah, I think so.
Stardock, yeah.
Yeah. So they were released, I want to say they were released before Christmas, but I'm probably completely wrong by this. They were probably released just after Christmas. But I myself, personally, I have never actually played a Galaxy Civilization game. So I'm really interested to know kind of what they're all about, if that makes sense.
Aren't they like
Galaxy.
really big 4X strategy games?
I don't know, I've not played them.
I haven't played them either because they look
Galaxy
large
2?
and complicated.
Sorry, Classic.
Galaxy 2 is on my top 5 list of all times in games that I've played, and I've done the dev stream with the Galaxy 3 release, so ask me, and I shall answer.
Oh, excellent. So what, like, what's the concept of it? What's the end game? What do you have to do in Galaxy Civilization?
Galciv is kind of
Or Galciv, yeah, sorry.
Well, it's what I call it. It's basically the big brother of games like Master of Orion, with a lot of spaceship customization, some very weird humor, a lot of tech, a recent update, and a good way to spend hundreds of hours if you don't value your life, I suppose. No, it's actually very challenging strategy 4X games. And again, Starship customization, that alone took hours upon hours out of my life. It kind of gives you this. You can create your starships and you can give them little background info, and you can kind of turn this into a ongoing show, a series like, oh, I created this starship class, and now I give this fluff, and oh, I created an updated version. Now it's the Mark II. I don't know, Conqueror class or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can kind of give it this space opera feel if you want to, or that might just be me. But,
cool. So it's a reasonably deep game then. I mean, 4X games, as far as I'm aware, 4X games are quite not impenetrable, but they're the sort of games that are very hard to learn quickly. Like the tutorial takes like a day, that sort of thing.
They're very complicated.
Yeah.
Warlock qualified, right, as a 4X game? The Warlock series of games, I believe.
I'd say so.
Yes.
Because I had those guys. I had a couple of the people on my channel to talk about Warlock, which I'm not sure if it's available on GOG, so maybe I won't go on with that point. Except to say that the complexity of it was always interesting to me. I've always had a love-hate relationship with the 4X games, in that I really, for a while, and it's the same thing even with Civ games and other of this turn-based strategy stuff, where I'm like, yes, totally, for the first hour, I'm like, yeah, and then the next hour, I'm like, okay, and then the next hour, I'm like, I kind of want to do something else now. So I've always had a little bit of that. And because there's no real story to underpin it other than the very broad story that you get between campaigns. But I mean, yeah, I had heard of it. I don't think I've ever played it, but of course I played Master of Orion and stuff like that. So it'll be cool. Although I'm more excited about the Sorcerer Kings because it's fantasy and that's my jam. Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Greg or Arvin or whatever you want me to call you. When it comes to 4X strategy games, I played Warlock 2. I liked it a lot. It was a really cool spin on Civilization, but a lot of 4X strategy games turn out to be Civilization. The most complicated one that I tried to play was Star Wars Rebellion, which is actually on GOG.com. I was going to stream that at some point in time, but I couldn't figure out how to play it. I went through the tutorial. I looked it up online.
I'm stunned.
I watched YouTube videos, and I couldn't. I was watching Classicor playing it, having no idea what he's doing. I gotta commend you for that, for actually being able to follow that game, because it's nothing but menus. It is menus and menus and menus. I don't know what it is. It's crazy.
Can I just say on a quick side note that only Pi, when I announced it, and I'll talk about this later, with the ArvanEleron and Anno semifinalists on my Twitch channel, so I swear to God this is true, Pi was not able to hear that he was a semifinalist because he couldn't open my webpage. I'd like to ask anyone on GOG.com if this surprises anyone in the world of the internet, that Pi could not actually hear the announcement because my page wouldn't load for him.
No. Does not surprise me in the slightest. Just for the benefit of anybody new watching, and also for Mr. Bischoff, MegapiemanPHD is renowned, and I use that term strongly, for having technical difficulties on most of, if not all of, his streams.
Yep.
There's a couple out there that have been okay. There's a couple.
It's a Pi thing, yeah.
It's a Pi thing.
It's definitely a Pi thing.
A lot of it stems from games not having windowed mode, so I have to jerry-rig something together so I can stream it. And
shockingly,
games
my
don't always
website
like
was
that.
available in windowed mode. It's itself a window.
Here's a question I have for you, though, Chris. Does Stasis have windowed mode?
It does have windowed mode, but it was only added after the release. So people complained enough about it that I was like,
You
yes,
sure it was
okay.
people and wasn't just Megapieman?
I haven't played Stasis yet, but I might play it now.
He's going to play now because it's got windowed mode.
Because it's got windowed mode.
Like I was saying before, the only thing I know about Stasis is that surgery scene, and that's kind of put me off the whole idea of the game, because I don't like medical stuff, and that is
scene,
horrifying.
Yeah.
Do-it-yourself
Then you're gonna
surgery.
hate Stasis, but yeah.
Says the man with
I
the
can't even
PhD
play
in this
Surgeon
thing.
Simulator, because it's just creepy.
I would. In fairness, the only kind of surgery video game I go near is Surgeon Simulator. That's because it's so over the top. It's ludicrous. But anything like that is just, no, absolutely not.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
There was this surgery game that I used to play when I was a kid, but I can't remember what it was actually called. But you actually sort of like, you got a scalpel and you had a whole lot of different surgeries that you could actually perform, and you could do like plastic surgery or remove items from somebody or something. And I've always wanted to find this game. I mean, it must have been kind of like early 90s. And it was honestly, it freaked me out enough that I really want to find it again. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a YouTuber friend of mine actually, one of her most popular videos is her playing, those little flash games you get on nefarious websites that have questionable content. Well, some of them are, perform your own plastic surgery and like perform your own eye surgery and stuff like this. And it's rubbish. It looks terrible because it's really, really terrible graphics and all this sort of stuff. But the way it animates like the eye popping out of the head or like something falling off the body, it gives you chills. It really does. She actually had to take a break for like a week from playing any video game because it actually made her feel physically unwell.
Wow, that sounds
Chris,
terrific.
Could the game you were talking about possibly be this? I'm going to post a link here in the Skype chat. It's called Life and Death. It's from 1988.
That sounds about right. That does sound about right.
It was by the Software Toolworks. Came out on Mac OS, DOS, Amiga, Atari ST, Apple 2GS.
Hey, shout out to the Amiga fans.
Yeah.
There you go.
The two of them exist.
Yeah. That's it. We're the fan club.
Yep.
Welcome.
Marble
Yes,
Madness
that's
in that
definitely-
game, right? Amiga for life.
Oh, that's
Was that it?
What a game.
Oh God. Amiga
Oh,
was
my
that
goodness.
Amiga was that system in the 80s, the computer system that your friend that was going to MIT since he was 9 had. You know what I mean? Like, and that's literally true in my case. Like, it was a friend of mine had an Amiga, and he worked with Marvin Minsky in like artificial intelligence lab and stuff like that. And that was exactly what it was. And he had this Amiga system, and we just marveled. And of course, it had like one program available for it in the world that existed, right? That he had, and he like talked to the programmer wherever he was because he was the only one who knew him. But it was just that was the Amiga system, and everyone else was just schlepping along with mid 80s Commodores, whatever. And he's like, no, but the Amiga, you plebes, is far more impressive. So.
Yeah, I remember we had an Amiga 600, and we had to get, because there were more games available on the Amiga 500, we had to get a disc obtained through less than reputable sources to actually emulate an Amiga 500 within the Amiga 600, just so we could play more games.
Nice.
That's the game I played recently. That was on the Amiga. Sensible World of Soccer, 96 to 97.
That was an Amiga
Nice.
thing, huh?
That was an Amiga game.
Oh.
Apparently originally.
No.
I don't think
There's
I
a couple
ever played
Amiga
an Amiga
games on GOG, like Cannon Fodder, Simon the Sorcerer, Another World, Lore of the Temptress, which is a free one.
Nice.
Sensible Soccer 06. There was a game released for the Amiga. I thought Amiga was from like the 80s. Why is there a game from 2006 for the Amiga?
Oh, because people still develop for it.
It's hobbyist stuff, right? Like, there's still people who are kind of there's people who still to this day release new games for the Intellivision. I have an Intellivision system, and they still release games for it.
Yeah.
That is reverse engineering, people. If you can get to an Intellivision.
Yeah, but
You
this
can
thing's
still
in
get
like
new stuff.
3D.
Sorry.
You do 3D on the Amiga?
I think so. I mean, wasn't Marble Madness? Well, I know it wasn't like strict 3D, but like wasn't it
It was like
capable of doing?
isometric 3D, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
It had 3D capability. It wasn't 3D modeling or anything like that, but you could play in 3D.
Yeah.
Ish. 3D ish.
Ish.
I don't know much about the Amiga. My first computer was a Packard Bell.
Yeah, I had one of those
Wow.
too. That was my first one also.
One of
386.
the posh kids.
C64 for me here.
That was back in the day before they found out that Packard was selling recycled computer parts, and they went out of business.
Yeah.
Yep, and then they faded quickly. So we're hyped about the Galactic Civ games or not? Is that what
I'm
we're hearing?
interested. I'm not gonna lie. I'm interested. It's one of those games. Whenever I actually sat and watched somebody play them. I think I watched one of Quill's streams playing it. Who
Yes,
streams
I
sometimes?
watched
He guest streams sometimes on GOG. And I was sat watching it, and I thought to myself, do you know what this looks? I'm not gonna lie. It looks thoroughly dull to watch, but I then sat there and watched 3 hours of it.
One thing that I have to say, which is amazing about the Galseth games, I haven't played the first one, but the second, 2 and 3 have it. They have a fantastic space battle mode. You go in, and you can, you can switch between different cameras, and you see all those lasers going off and kind of action camish. That's amazing. And when you see your own little ship designs attacking the opponent and all those weapons that you put on them firing, and that's actually quite amazing, and that's quite entertaining as well.
Oh, that's pretty
So Galseth really, it breaks off this this extremely boring part of 4X with, entertaining space battles and very nice humor and nice graphics and everything. So I can only say, folks, try those games out. They are quite engaging.
And available on GOG at very reasonable prices.
Oh yeah, prices.
Can one of us hit every time you do something like that, just like a da 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 da, just like a little a tag, you know what I mean? This is like a little tagline. Brought to you by
I should
GOG.
smile and look at the camera, and a little twinkle should go off my teeth.
Right.
You can buy
I think we should do that
the
for
entire Galactic Civilization series for $79.97,
da.
which backwards is the same price.
Right. So it's a palindrome. I think we'll do that, Chris. We'll do that for your stuff too. Every time we mention Stasis, we'll just tag it with a little da 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 da, and everyone will immediately, almost like lemmings over the cliff, run to buy your thing immediately.
We'll have a link pop up in chat whenever we mention it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just download it automatically through Twitch.
That's not a bad idea. Quick, let me get something ready. Oh my god, that's amazing. But yeah, moving swiftly on, because we've got a few games to talk about. We've also got Sorcerer Kings as well. And I saw somebody streaming this. I want to say it was Outstar. I'm pretty sure it was Outstar. All I really know is that it's a fantasy game. That's kind of where my experience stops. So if anybody knows more about it, go for it.
The only thing I know about it is that for some reason, every single time I've seen Sorcerer Kings, I always read it as Soccer Kings.
I was going to say that when you said
throws
Sensible
me off.
World of Soccer.
It throws me off whenever I look it up, because I'm looking it up and I'm like, well, this is a bunch of fantasy stuff. What does this have to do with soccer? And then I realize, oh, it's Sorcerer, not soccer.
Wizard, orc, elf, dwarf, soccer. Wizard, dwarf. Like, it's just...
Yeah. Hey, just make it a Blood Bowl spinoff. There you go, but soccer instead of American football.
I do want to say about Sorcerer Kings, which I've had a chance to I haven't had a chance to play it, but I also have watched a couple of little playthroughs of it, and also watched some more trailers and stuff prepping for this. And I have to say that this is just a general comment. I appreciate and would like to encourage developers to make use of the entire color palette. I know it's very trendy these days to make everything Seattle sky, just, grayer and more gray, and then 3 shades of gray and 50 shades of gray. That's fine. There's lots of gray. Can we please get the other colors in there? Nice reds and blues, oranges. It's amazing how many other things can go. If you go to the left and right on the color spectrum, Sorcerer King actually does that, and it was a pleasure to watch it and go, color. There's color in the world. I feel like I'm using all of my retina for this. Like,
you don't understand, Greg. You gotta follow the laws sent by the Order 1886 when they make things cinematic, which means gray and brown.
The grayer, the more gray,
else.
the more serious, right? The more gray it is, the more serious. You just know, the more realistic.
Gritty and real
It's not as bad as the days of Quake when it's just, hey, it's brown. There's some brown. I got brown over there.
Did you play Fallout 3, Pi? Green, 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 green. I mean, come on, man.
Do you know what game has a lot of color? Stasis. A lot of red, some green.
Boom. Always on brand.
Yeah.
This is why we have this guy on the podcast.
I know Grey Old Gamer doesn't have a problem with gray, but I'm not talking about... Gray's fine. I wrote a book called Gray Shades. It's coming out this year, man. I just... but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about color. I want color in my
Available
world.
now for pre-order. Gray Shades on Amazon.com.
Yes. But I did. I like the color palette, and that I have to say that's an important thing that I think sometimes developers miss. If you don't have a somewhat visually interesting palette, and it doesn't have to be cartoonish, but if you don't have a visually interesting color palette, it is literally draining on the player, on my experience, and on the viewer who has to watch nothing but gray on top of gray on top of gray. I don't know. I like having some actual colors.
I think that's actually something that's sort of like that Blizzard has gotten very, very they've done very well. Is they've got a very, very strong kind of color palette design.
Yep.
In their
also
game.
Shadowrun, Hairbrained Schemes, same thing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that people were praising the Fallout originally the Fallout 4 trailer, like the first Fallout 4 trailer that came out, was that they put actual color in the game. I don't know. I guess that's a positive, but I remember there was a lot of people who were all excited about that.
When that's being touted,
When color
by the
in your
games
game's a
press,
feature, I think
Yeah.
I think we reached a low when
you
color in your
gotta
game's a
rethink your
feature.
strategy there. If it's like, oh, it's got color in it, now available in glorious Technicolor.
Well, yes, that's true. It should be more to the game than just the
Yeah.
color. But I was saying visually, I was just struck by the visual feel of it, and I was like, thank God, there's some enjoyable color here rather than just grayness.
No,
So,
no, absolutely.
Some of its
I completely
design
agree.
reminds me a bit of Warlock that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I think it's basically. I think I completely agree with Arv. I remember I was playing a successful string of essentially what I now know as grey-brown shooters on the PlayStation. And I had to review all these games. And I don't know how much people know about reviewing video games, but reviewing video games is a fun job unless you're reviewing terrible video games, because you've got to play these things, right? So,
But people love that. There are channels on YouTube dedicated to only covering garbage.
oh no, this is before I got into YouTube. This was when I actually had to play the game fully and then write like 2,000 words about it. So yeah, but yeah, it was fine. And then I got to play Rayman Origins, and I realized what colourful actually was.
yeah. Sure.
Even
Sure.
the original Rayman is it's a beautiful game.
Yeah. It was so nice. It was so nice just to sort of turn it on and sort of go, wow, I'd forgotten games could be like this. Not only is it fun, but it's colourful as well.
And it affects the vibrancy of the visual field, affects the vibrancy of the world in which you're in. So it's understandable that in a game, for example, like Stasis, if the colors are somewhat more muted, you could speak to this, Chris, that it's going to sort of reflect what the sort of the mood of the game. What I object to is having stuff that is constantly, the grimdark fantasy vision of the future, exactly like every other grimdark vision fantasy of the future, is going to be done in all grays and browns. And I'm like, come on, man. Like having actual sort of a color palette that reflects some of the tone is impressive to me, and you can play with it in both ways. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, which is a tremendous game, had a very beautiful color palette in a lot of ways, even though at times it's telling a dark story. But because there's variety in the color palette and it reflects the variety of the tone in the storytelling, you're much more drawn into it than would be the case if it was just serious, must insert 7,000 shades of gray. The Witcher is colorful too, by the way. The Witcher is not gray,
No, absolutely.
nothing but
Also
gray.
available on GOG.
So, yeah. So.
That's
I
kind
mean,
of
I think if you sort of
you can use gray to your advantage. I remember the movie The Spirit, which everything in that was monochrome except for like the tie of the main character.
Yeah, the red stuff, right?
And there's a game called Blues and Bullets that's sort of like a Telltale adventure game that uses that same kind of a thing where everything is grayscale except for specific stuff that pops up as red to be in strict contrast. So gray isn't bad. You gotta use it right, you know?
Sorry, Chris, what were you about to say?
I was going to say, I mean, if you look at things like film, I mean, having like a color script for a film is so important to a lot of them.
Right.
And if you guys ever get a chance and you take a look at the Pixar art books, they're like one of the very first things they do, they take the script and they do a full color script, and they actually use color to tell things of the story. And I think that when you sort of have when your color design is too strong, that it actually starts to override what you're trying to do with the story, it's definitely a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think they're definitely using. I mean, one of the most like beautiful games I've seen recently. I don't really like the game, and obviously it's a bit controversial. Is Hatred, but just sort of, I mean, that game sort of, it uses the fact that it's black and white and has these little moments of color and everything, and it's so effectively. So I think if you can have your blacks and whites and grays, but they need to be done with the purpose of design, not just because that's what the art director says needs to happen in the game.
Yeah, not just because you're checking off on your bingo card. Serious means shades of gray, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if it fits the atmosphere, it's right. But if it's just, we need to do this because everyone does, then it's
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
stupid idea, basically.
Do you know another colourful game I've seen recently?
What's that?
Nuclear Throne.
Nuclear Throne.
What a lovely
not
segue.
seen
I saw
Nuclear Throne
Pi
is a
play.
very colorful game.
I saw Pi
Such a
playing
good
Nuclear
host.
Throne. And
Oh,
let me
he
just
streamed
say,
it already.
It was spectacular. Yeah, I saw him playing it. And I have to say, it was entertaining.
I
That
died
is a
12
game-
times.
Well, that's as always. That is entertaining, Pi. But
it is.
what I was going to say was that is a game I would not touch with a 10,000-foot pole. I have no interest in that game, but it's fun to watch. But God, no. A roguelike, or whatever. Someone's going to tell me it's not roguelike. The idea where you're constantly dying and, and then you have to go back and
yeah,
oh, God.
That's roguelike, isn't
Everything
it?
about that is my nope button. So it was fun watching you play, and I'm glad there are gamers and streamers that I can watch play entertaining games like that I have zero interest in playing ever. Just not me. It's not my deal.
I'm going to talk a little bit about Nuclear Throne. I've played a good amount of these roguelikes, roguelite-likes, randomly generated death labyrinths, whatever you want to call them. I've played I played a little bit of Risk of Rain. I played some of the Binding of Isaac. I could go through the games that I have and name off a bunch of them. Dungeon Souls is one I played recently, and there's a lot of them. But for some reason with Nuclear Throne, I had seen people play it previously to me actually playing it, but I didn't really find myself all that interested in it while I was playing the actual game. I don't know, maybe it's because I'd actually seen previous things, maybe because the game had originally released in early access and everyone had kind of frothed over it at that point, and when it finally releases now, people already know everything there is to know about it. But actually being able to sit down and play Nuclear Throne, I don't really have a want to go back and play it again. Now, one of my favorite games from last year, or maybe 2014, I don't remember if it was from last year or 2014, was Tower of Guns, which is also available on GOG.com. And that is a randomly generated game. It's not procedurally generated. I believe Nuclear Throne is procedurally generated, at least to a bit. But the thing that I really liked about Tower of Guns is, to a point, you were kind of always unlocking stuff. Every time you played, even if you died, you still kind of felt like it was worth your time, to a point. And then after you unlock everything, it's more about just trying to beat the game with the worst weapons possible. But for some reason with Nuclear Throne, you can unlock a couple of things, and there's some hidden stuff. But very quickly, I got to the point where I felt like I had already played everything there was to play with the game. And that was within about 2 hours on a live stream. So I liked it, but I didn't really see a lot to bring me back to keep playing it. Another thing I didn't like about it is the fact that the power-ups, most of them are crap. There are very specific power-ups in that game. Like one that'll make your health more, one that'll make your bullets do more damage, one that'll damage everybody on screen when you get hit. So there's no reason not to take those power-ups. And there's a lot of power-ups out there that are so specific, I'm probably never going to come into that situation within the run of the game. There's no point in me actually taking it. So very quickly it becomes, you're looking for the same power-ups, you're always fighting the exact same bosses. You're always going to the exact same areas unless you go to a secret area.
Yeah.
That was the thing with Tower of Guns. The bosses are always different. And there are certain levels in Tower of Guns, like level 2 could be the Foundry or it could be the Gearworks. And they're both very different. The Gearworks is a rather large level that you have to deal with spinning gears and all that whatnot, hence the Gearworks name. And the Foundry, you have to deal with lava, but it's a lot shorter. And Nuclear Throne, from what I played of it, didn't really have that.
So let me ask a question then to Chris about your feelings as developer on randomly or procedurally versus handcrafted levels. Because I have an opinion about it as a player, but I wonder what you think about it as a developer.
Well, for me, my sort of development comes more from the fact that I want to tell stories. And I find sort of telling stories within the randomly generated procedural things to be very, very difficult. I don't play a lot of procedural games. I like games that are sort of very, very focused, very handcrafted. I love, my favorite part of Call of Duty are the single player missions.
Me too.
Yep, same.
Yeah,
okay,
so
good man.
That's really what I see where the procedural stuff comes in. And I think especially with indie developers, going procedural it's a clever, smart thing to actually do. Because to actually do sort of handcrafted levels and things, it's a massive time sink. It takes an enormous amount of time. But I personally prefer that sort of very handmade quality that comes with things that have purposely been put down in places and made.
I'm the same way, and that's why I was curious, because I was thinking about way back in the day. You guys will remember, certainly Classicor is going to remember a game called Dungeon Hack, and it was a
I played
game
it on
that
stream.
had. Yep. Oh, did you?
I
Okay.
streamed it.
So it wasn't. It
Several
was an
times.
interesting idea, and the premise behind it was, you have millions of dungeons, infinite dungeons. But the problem is that when you have infinite possibilities, sort of one of the storytelling points that people often make is if you put a character, and you stick him in a well, right, and you load rocks on top of him, and you put walls around him, that's not an interesting story because there's no place for the character to go, right? He can't go up, down, left, right, or center. If you put him in a featureless desert where he could go everywhere and do everything, you have a version of the Superman problem where there's nothing interesting because you could do anything at all. And I always felt there was
You
a
have
little bit of
Minecraft.
that. Yeah, well, a little bit, although with Minecraft you can build your own. But if you don't have those kind of creative tools, in a game like Dungeon Hack, where you were just playing through it, it always felt like it fell flat to me. And compare that to my game of the year in 2014 was Legend of Grimrock 2, which I thought was a phenomenal game. I love the Grimrock games. I've talked to those guys before on stream, and they're good in part because the levels are handcrafted and you feel like there is a purpose. There was a human intellect behind constructing them, and I am playing along myself as a human intellect to kind of work through those things. So I've always enjoyed that more than the millions and millions of computer-generated things, which to me end up coming out to sort of like, okay, I could play this, and if I win it, it's like, and I'll play it the next 15 times, that I could also win it. And nothing has any particular interest or value of one set of circumstances over another to me. Now, again, that's just my sort of take on it. That's just an opinion, but I personally really like the handcrafted stuff. So I was just
If
curious.
I could maybe just add a little thing about that,
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
that, especially with Dungeon Hack, what you can do with the random stuff, especially again with a game that gives you all these customization options like Dungeon Hack does, you can do very silly stuff. I mean, play Dungeon Hack, put secret vaults on maximum, put keys on maximum, and you will have a lot of fun. It's completely silly and it's not a storyline, but you can goof off for an hour or two, and that's always where I found interest in those randomized games, because you can just do silly things, and you would never have a dungeon like that in a handcrafted game. It's just nice to try different things like that.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, that's fine for something that's silly, but I guess what I would say is that's, to me, it's not memorable. So I remember overall the experience of Dungeon Hack being like, whereas I remember the experience of Eye of the Beholder, or Legend of Grimrock, or Legend of Grimrock 2, or any game that I had to go through.
Hooray! Someone said we're back. Fantastic. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Boyos and grills. Now, I can only blame Virgin Media. Best ISP I can get right now. These issues will be sorted because I will be on the phone with them after I finish this podcast, screaming and shouting at them about frame rates and about drop packets and all that sort of lovely technical stuff. Anyway, yeah, so we were talking about BloodRayne. So who knows what about BloodRayne? I know it's about vampires.
I know a bit about BloodRayne Betrayal.
Go!
So BloodRayne Betrayal is like a... Bloodbane, yes. Bloodborne.
I know the name.
Bloodborne Betrayal.
Bloodborne Betrayal. Not JJ.
BloodRayne Betrayal is by Way Forward Technology, and it's kind of an attempt to bring BloodRayne back. I never played any of the older ones, but they were like 3D spectacle fighters, I believe. And then Uwe Boll made a movie that was terrible. Apparently, I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it. So, but BloodRayne Betrayal, I found it to actually be really good. It's like a 2D spectacle fighter, kind of like a brawler. If you ever played Shank or Shank 2 by Clay Entertainment, I would say it's around that kind of a game. And it originally came out for Xbox Live, I believe. It was originally out for that, and then it got a PC port, and now it's made its way over to GOG. It's a pretty difficult game. It's got a couple of control issues with some things, but I like it a lot. The music is by Jake Kaufman. You also might know him from Shovel Knight, as well as pretty much anything else WayForward has made, and it is freaking awesome. It's a combination of orchestral and metal, and I love it.
Cool.
So BloodRayne is, and I remember watching a little bit of this played. Someone brought up while we were offline how the problem is that everybody remembers the horrific movie BloodRayne, the movie, and I feel constrained to point out that did you know that BloodRayne the movie starred, for some reason, Ben Kingsley. How does Ben Kingsley show up in BloodRayne the movie?
What?
He was the king of the vampires in BloodRayne the movie. And I'm trying to think how Uwe Boll, who is the, with all apologies to my German friend here, the worst director in the history of film, how that guy who knows this and consequently gets into fights with people and threatens to beat him up. I'm not making this up. He fights
That's
That's
that
really
guy.
true.
in a
It's
boxing
that's-
ring.
That's true.
Yes.
But that dude somehow got Ben Kingsley for BloodRayne the movie. How did he do that? I don't.
Money.
I guess,
People who
but
were in
like,
the
A
Super
lot of
Mario
paper.
Bros. Movie, don't you?
Blackmail.
I just, oh my God, it's terrible. But
Ben
anyway, so
Kingsley was also wasn't Ben Kingsley also in that Dungeons and Dragons movie?
no, that was Jeremy Irons, who was desperately
Jeremy
trying to,
Irons.
who every word was, "This is for a paycheck." If you just did the subtext, every word was, "This is for a." Oh
Yeah,
God, is that movie
pretty
bad?
much like George Clooney in Batman.
So, listen, Clooney at least, you know, I don't know. Who knows? what's
Clooney
going on
has
I
with
a
am
Irons.
picture
convinced.
of himself.
I am convinced that George Clooney could make a good Batman if it just wasn't made by Joel Schumacher in that
That's your
garbage that he
biggest
did
issue.
with Batman.
Yeah, that's your biggest issue. But as far as BloodRayne the game is concerned, I heard a lot of good things about the game itself. I don't remember a lot of the gameplay, but I feel like Outstar automatically plays this, right? I mean, it's yet another vampire game. So, I mean, I
He
assume.
has
Pretty much.
threatened
I mean,
to
we-
beat us up if we claim the game.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
no,
of course,
we don't
right?
we don't pigeonhole people, and we obviously don't assume that certain streamers will be playing certain games, but it kind of makes sense. And we all have this sort of collective reasoning, and we all sort of say it's a vampire game. It must be Outstars, and Outstars sort of
yeah.
goes,
She
Yeah,
wanted
that's
to
fine.
play it.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. It's.
I mean, the
it's
character even kind of looks like her.
yeah, it does actually.
a little bit,
Well,
I guess.
depending on her current hair colors.
A little bit.
Depending how angry she is.
Or at least her old hair color
Yes.
that she had.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, so what is it? What the BloodRayne that's been released on GOG? Is that like the one of the originals? Is that like a new one?
No,
It's the
that's
newest one,
the
isn't it?
latest one. It came out
Latest and
in
greatest, eh?
2000. Let me Google it. 2011.
Oh.
It came out in 2011.
Okay.
It did not do well on the console. Metacritic's got it a 3.5. IGN's got a 9 out of 10, which means nothing
Which
from
means
IGN.
4 out of 10 normally. Yeah.
And it's got a 6 out of 10 on Steam. I can just say I really liked it. It's not
It had
an
a cult
easy
following, I
game,
must
and
admit.
some people have claimed some of its level design to be kind of unfair.
Yeah,
But I enjoyed the crap out of what I played of it.
yeah. No, it certainly had a cult following as well. I mean, its fans were very vocal about how much they liked it. I remember that much at the very least. So I've got a couple of friends who are into like the alternative scene and like any games that involve vampires or zombies, that sort of thing. So
I
they
don't
were-
give a
they were
crap about
very much-
vampires, but I just think the game's fun.
It's
Yeah.
the third. It seems to be the third BloodRayne game. All three seem to be on GOG.
Interesting.
Just checked.
Yes,
Nice.
the old BloodRayne games are in 3D, and
They are very cheap right now. 75% off. Cool.
Just so you know.
Only on GOG.
Da-da-da-da.
You can
Are we,
make
are we
a
getting, are we
killing
getting
of
paid
a
by the
sale.
mention? Are we getting paid by the mention? Because
Oh,
$0 salary.
paid by the anything.
Wait,
Yeah.
hang
by the
hang
editor.
on, you guys getting
Yeah.
paid?
If you're
mean-
getting
Okay.
paid, I want to know what's going on.
No,
here.
I had a dispute with Outstar, and she reduced my salary to 0. So it's
Yeah.
kind of, it's ongoing. I said
And
that
it's
my
still too
lawyers
much.
are suing her for the $0 that
Yeah.
she owes me, because when she sees when she pays me the 0 that they're going to get from me after they're done suing her for the 0, let me tell you, it'll be 0 that we're talking about. So it's
That's a
At least
lot of
the
zeros,
difference
man.
between those-
law of zeros. But yes, so BloodRayne looks. I
The
feel too like BloodRayne
original
was.
BloodRayne is from 2003. Apparently, it's a
Ah,
shooter
right.
somehow. You kill Nazis, it looks like. The second one's from
Because it's
2005,
2003.
which is also apparently a shooter. I don't think you're killing Nazis in this. Maybe I'm not seeing any Nazis in the screenshots.
We hadn't run out of Nazis to kill by that point. I've got to admit, in video games, there were still plenty of games.
According
using
to
that trope.
Wolfenstein: The New Order, you will never run out of Nazis.
Never run out of
They
Nazis.
just
Or
keep
robot
making more.
dogs.
No, it's very
Absolutely.
true.
So another game we currently we can talk about because it was released today, in fact, is Anno 1404. And I want to say I've got that right.
Gold
but
edition, yeah.
Gold edition. Thank you very much, Classicor. I'm glad you're here.
Oh, the gold edition.
Yeah.
I
I
know
have the page
practically
open
nothing
up.
about the Anno games. I will
That's
defer.
a lot. Whatever happened to Anno 1403 and all the ones before it? That's a lot of games. They made like 14,000,
'cause-
1,400 games.
Yeah, because then
You
You know,
Almost
Anno
like future
1320 was the best. No, you plebe, it was Anno 1371. That was the best.
then it went to
I want to know about
22,
what did
30
Anno
or something
1
like
look
that.
like? When did that one come out?
It was just a bunch of
Anno 1.
ASCII text on a screen.
Yeah, it was a very simplified process that just involves moving an amoeba around. It's basically NO1. That's all we get.
Yeah, it's a
Or
0 and a 1.
It's like Zork. You're trying to play. It's a Zork game, but as a city manager.
You are surrounded by
I can't
plasma. You're liable
imagine.
to be eaten by Gru.
I can't imagine how that. I want to see someone try to do that though. Try to make a text-based city management game.
Pac-Man's going to get into game development now just for niche games that he thinks of
Text-based
during.
management.
I don't
during
even.
GOGCast.
I have no idea how you would do that, but someone do it.
He just
Gosh.
struts into EA. Okay, guys, I got a brilliant idea.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna make exactly $0 out of this, but you will be remembered forever.
I love it. It'll be awesome.
Why would I go to EA? Go to Kickstarter, man.
But has
Yeah.
anyone played the NO games? Because I myself am not
No,
familiar
I
with
haven't.
the
I've watched some people
I've never
stream them
played
Sadly.
again. Sort of seemingly. I kind of play video games by proxy these days because I'm doing a lot of work at the minute behind the scenes. So I spend a lot of my time watching games being streamed rather than actually playing them myself.
Right.
But yeah, I've watched them being streamed a couple of times. But I've watched some of the recent ones, so it's interesting to know. I'd be interested to know the differences between like the more recent Annos and also this one, because obviously this one came first. But I'd like to know sort of the cultural differences in what buildings you can place, what kind of things you can build up, how much details in the actual city building system of it. Because I love city builders. It's one of my buttons. You know, city builders are just one of my things.
Two buttons.
Well, what kind of city builder is it? Is it your Sim City city builder, or is it like Pharaoh?
I think it's a bit like Pharaoh. If you're using
Pharaoh-
those two
I like
as
Pharaoh.
comparisons,
Pharaoh's a lot of fun.
I think if you're using those two as comparisons, I think it's more like Pharaoh than SimCity. But I could be wrong. I've only gone off what I can see rather than what I've actually played.
And it's real time, right? It's
They
not
use-
Yes.
Okay.
If I
I'm
remember
gonna say
correctly,
yes. I'm either gonna get it right.
Pharaoh in those kind of games, like the Caesar games, and I think there was one that came out recently called like Pathos or something that was like a steampunk kind of game. They use different system compared to the SimCity because they actually have the people who wander about your city that affect different things.
Yeah.
Whereas SimCity doesn't do that. Well, at least the older SimCities. I think the newest SimCity by EA tried to do that, kind of,
Sadly.
and it didn't work at all.
No.
I think they called it like the free agent system or something.
Yeah. Where you had
Yeah.
like customizable Sims wandering around your city.
Yeah.
Just like,
But of
It
course,
was like the people who worked in a place would give, like if you had somebody who worked near like in a power plant and they walked past a building, they would give electricity to that building just by going past it.
right, but of
okay.
course the big thing in the EA version, of course, as we know, is that they discovered people went in and sort of drilled down and watched some of the Sims, and they found that quite the contrary to what had been claimed, a lot of those Sims would just freeze and do nothing for a while. So
Yeah.
the idea that they were all independently moving around, living their own lives, was just a flat out lie by EA, and they got
flannel.
and they got called out on it, which is why Cities Skyline, right, which came out, I think it was,
I really like that
just
game.
dominated them in terms of interest level,
That's a
because
nice looking game.
first rule of Roosevelt development, kids, is don't lie about your product. Just don't
The
lie
cool
about
thing
it.
about City Skylines is that the people who made City Skylines were the same people who made like transport focused games.
Cities in Motion.
So
Yeah,
Cities in
Cities in
Motion.
Motion.
Also
So they
available on
already
JG.
had already figured out all that crap.
Right.
They had for over years they'd figure out all the transportation, all the movement of people. They already knew how to do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
And interestingly, sorry to interrupt.
it was easy
Interestingly,
to
in
slide
City
over.
Skylines, because I played it quite a lot recently, I realized that they actually learned everything to do with the transport management. They actually put that entire mechanic into City Skylines. So the minute you start scratching the surface of City Skylines and you're like, oh, I need to make a bus route, surely it will be like SimCity, and I'll just plop some little bus stops down, draw a line, and that'll do it. No, none of that. It's proper, you've got to purchase the buses, you've got to plan the routes, you've got to do specific time schedules, that sort of thing. It's all in there. And the mods as well are pretty impressive as well.
And I believe
I
I've
doubt-
seen Quill playing that too, if I'm not mistaken, either on his own channel or maybe here,
Possibly.
playing a little bit of City Skylines also, if I'm not mistaken.
I
So,
don't
yeah.
believe City Skylines itself is available on GOG. Cities in Motion is. I've
Oh, maybe
streamed
that's what I'm thinking about then.
Cities in
Okay.
Motion 2. I've streamed that myself, and I actually thought to myself, God, I've never played a management sim like this on a stream before. This is going to be really dull for people. It was captivating. People were just glued to the screen.
it was a
Like,
catastrophe.
Well,
Or is
so
it
here's the question then: are games like Anno, are they looking for? Is there an itch that still needs to be scratched? Have we not yet found a city builder that we can all coalesce around, for example, and say this is something which really kind of gets it done on a bunch of levels? Are these all kind of iterations of the same process, but we haven't arrived yet? Because I think you could think of a lot of, you could think of sort of definitive action RPGs and say there are enough games out there that you can continue to refine the graphics and improve the story and all that stuff. But as far as like this kind of touches all the buttons, there are certain genres, subgenres, I think that we've gotten to that point. I'm wondering if we've got, because I don't know the subgenre well enough. Is there stuff still to be done in city building games that we haven't done that needs to get out there? I don't know.
I would like to raise the series of Tropico, which is a city manager, but it's very, very different from like Pharaoh or from SimCity or City Skyline.
It's created its own subgenre, basically. It's now
but
it's
every
now a
Tropico game is the
sim.
same. I mean, it's never
Tropico is great, except for the fifth one.
all the games are basically the same game, more or less, with a slightly better skin. I don't know.
I've got
I'm
to
okay
admit,
with that because it's good.
I slightly disagree with that. I've got to admit, only because I played like 2, 3, and then 4, and I found each one it gave me a little bit more. Like it was a case of I had slightly more options and I had more freedom to do stuff. So every time I actually played it, I mean, fair enough, I hit the same wall with a lot of them because I do sometimes with city management sims. I hit a wall after a number of hours, like 6 or 12 hours or something like that, and I'll just kind of not lose interest, but I'll stop and I'll go to something else and I'll stop being obsessed with it, and then I'll come back to it a few days later. But I hit that wall with the Tropicos at roughly the same point, but still. I like the fact that each one of them gave me slightly deeper options. Does that make sense?
That's fair. And we also got Banished was another one that chat just mentioned. As in that same concept.
Banished is very interesting. I haven't played Banished, but I watched a review of it because unlike something like Tropico is based on building an economy, sustaining that economy, and trying to keep people happy. SimCity is based on keeping your city and business and constantly growing.
Yes.
But a game like Banished is 100% based on just trying to stay alive.
It's just people, isn't it? It's people management rather than city management. It's like your
survival-ish.
Yeah. It's a city builder / survival game. I like the idea of it. I think that's a good that's a good genre to kind of explore. But I think every time I've watched somebody play it, it's a case of they play it for 2 hours and they're doing great, and then suddenly everyone will die. And
Winter.
For what?
Winter will kill you.
Yeah. Winter comes and then everyone dies.
And everyone dies.
That doesn't seem fun to me. You know, it doesn't seem like it seems like not enough of a challenge and more of a punishment for playing that long.
Damn it, man! It's a stunning new vision of the future. Stop, okay? It's a new vision. It's the future, and it's stunning. So please, okay?
It's cinematic.
Yes, it's depressing as all hell, and it's not any more realistic than the idea that we all ride rainbow unicorns. But it's a stunning new vision of the future, and I will not allow you.
I like colourful ideas, okay? Colourful ideas, happiness, rainbows.
No,
candy,
only
kittens.
gray. Only gray.
Bring it back around. Only gray. Yeah. We've come full circle, people.
By the way, did you guys see that Grivix just posted? I don't know if you can you probably won't be able to put the audio on stream mic, but Grivix just gave us his own little jingle that he has just done for the GOGcast just now.
I did not. I genuinely did not. I tell you what, if we get a chance during the near the end, if you can pop that into Skype, perhaps.
I will.
Then I will try and play that near the end of the GOGcast.
Just done.
Otherwise, we will play it near on the next episode. But yeah, Grivix, or Gravix, as I probably mispronounce him, he's good with his music, I must admit.
Groovy Grivix.
Grivix, yeah.
Thanks, Grivix.
Good. Thank you very much. So moving swiftly on. Also, there
Hang on.
Swiftly.
Sorry.
Since Chris hasn't talked in a while, I will raise the question: do you think you would ever make a city builder?
No.
Horror, sci-fi.
I mean, I like games that have like very specific sort of handcrafted stories and stuff. But I will tell you that my brother loves those sort of things. So he loves sort of like build your own space station and build your own city and manage your sims and then that kind of thing. And he's sort of been working on a in his spare time like something quite similar to almost like space-based DF9, but a bit more sort of survival horror-ish. And I think that maybe one day he'll be able to sort of show it off to everybody.
Survival horror space simulator. It's like
Destiny playtesters.
As soon as he's got something out, I'm sure he'll.
Does he need voice work?
Can we stop asking
I
for
will
jobs,
chill
please?
myself out for a job.
I just want to
Da,
get
da, 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 just repeatedly, like everyone's just going to walk
reel it
around.
back in, people. Just reel it back in. Keep this for after the GOGCast. If you want to pimp yourself out to a special guest, that's okay. Just do it afterwards.
God help us.
Um,
But I mean, one of the awesome things about Banish was basically that the entire game was made by one guy. I think it's Luke Horowitz or
oh, was
something along those
it?
lines.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I think it was made by one guy who made the
Wow.
entire game by himself.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I always got
So
to
it
give
can't be
props
done.
to one-man
That's-
developers out there. That's got to be hard.
Yeah, especially if you've got someone who's doing like the art and the programming and everything. It's
Yeah.
sort of this, the perfect sort of match of these skills, and it's incredible what he actually did.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I've a lot of respect for indie developers specifically who kind of either in like a 1 or 2 man team and they do everything themselves. I mean, even if they've got like a full-time job at the same time, like they're holding down a wage and also they're following their passion.
You mean like Cold Hearts by chance?
Do you mean Cold Hearts by Outstar Walker? Remember, he's an 8-bit of the GOG stream team, Classic
I might do.
What a coincidence!
Da, da, da. I want our $0 paid, Outstar.
Yeah.
I also was going to say 2 of those that really grabbed me. One of them, and I've talked to both of them. One of them I had on my stream. One is Paper Sorcerer. The guy did the whole thing by himself, and the other one was Undertale, which was pretty much a one-man operation for the most part. There was a little bit of the art, I think, that was done by someone else, but most of it was just him. And that impresses me. Chris, I'm officially impressed by you guys being able to hold all of that in your head at the same time. Like, small teams is one thing. Just about one-man teams, pretty much, is, like, really impressive. So
That is something else, yeah.
Yeah, for
Cool.
sure.
Yeah, so I think we've only really got one other game to talk about in regards to what's been released on GOG recently. It's not really been released, it's more been offered up for pre-orders. Now this is Agatha Christie, The ABC Murders. Now
I am pumped up about this product. I am pumped up about this. I'm pumped up about it. I showed it to Pi, and I was like, "You can't have it, Pi. I want this." First of all, I love mysteries. Second of all, everyone's going to be shocked to know that I love stories. And because I love story and I love mysteries, I've been thinking about playing a Sherlock Holmes game at some point, either on stream or not. The timing is such. I would love, because I'm going to be done with Ravenloft on the Pen and Pixel show by the next session. I wish this were out just a little earlier because I'd love to play this, and maybe I'll still figure out a way to kind of fit it in. But yeah, it's basically playing through the ABC Murders with Hercule Poirot, which is probably the most famous of the Agatha Christie sleuths.
Yeah.
And it's a really the art style looks very cool. It's a lot of I dig it. I'm actually really looking forward to giving it a shot. And I just wish they would release it a little earlier, but it's still going to be cool. Yeah, I agree, Dizzy. Broken Sword's a good example. It also, the style of it reminds me slightly of the Telltale Games model a little bit in terms of the approach. Not every aspect of it. Obviously, there's some differences too. But so anyway, I am down with that. I'm down with the sickness that is Agatha Christie.
You're
I'm
down
just
with the
glad to
Agatha
see-
Christie sickness. That's good to know.
I'm just glad to see that it's not a hidden object game by Big Fish like all the other Agatha Christie games that I found on the internet that are. Is there an audience for that? Do people
There's
really
bound
play
to
those?
be. There's bound to
I
be.
mean, seriously.
An audience for what now?
Hidden object games by Big Fish. It's all they make. All they make.
Some people, but look,
the
on a
artwork
tablet,
is great, but
I
the
played
games
one
are terrible.
once. I don't. They're. Look, man. Like, Where's Waldo? Is that a great book? No, but it's kind of
I
fun.
know
There's an audience
Outstar
for it.
worked on.
It's always the
on a
same hidden object, though, isn't it? Lazy level design, always the same.
What was that?
Waldo.
So one of the games Outstar did art for won a thing. It was a hidden object game. It won a thing.
She
So
made
wait,
a lot of pickaxes for that. I remember that. She was
Can't
talking.
remember.
just
to
to
us about-
specify, so I just want to make sure that everyone is clear on this. Chad, if someone could write this down for me. So MegapiemanPHD, you have made the claim that the hidden object games, including those in which our stream team leader, Outstar Walker, was directly responsible, are, and I quote, terrible games.
I
Right?
understand.
Yeah.
Can we
No,
get an
no,
echo?
no, no,
Terrible
no.
games.
Before
It's on record.
you
Spell
get
it out.
Outstar mad at me, I said the games were
Matter.
terrible, but the art was good. Generally, hidden object games have some really good artwork,
Okay.
and it's such a waste. It's such a waste. It's
Got
like
you.
the music in a Sonic game. It's the biggest waste of it because everything else is terrible.
It's time to lean back and enjoy the show.
Yep. Pretty much,
Watching
Pie-Man is on
experiments.
form. That's all we do. We just say, we wheel out Pie-Man, we just let him do what he does.
Bring it on! Judge me! I dare you!
But no, I'm really looking forward to it. I love mystery games anyway, and I'm definitely looking forward to trying to give it a shot. And I don't know, working through it. I wish actually, just in general, it would be lovely if GOG, the powers that be at GOG, could get more Sherlock Holmes games on GOG, please. That would be wonderful. I think we've got 1 or 2 maybe at most, but I would love to have more. I think it's Silver Earring is the one that's on there now, and I'd love to get more. So
The Raven is a really good game that's similar to Sherlock Holmes.
yeah, I've heard. I haven't played it,
Isn't
but
that a Sherlock Holmes game?
yeah,
There's also Crimes of Punishment. Sherlock Holmes Crimes of Punishment would be cool to see.
right. I had heard about
Really
it. Right.
wanted to play
Apparently,
that
yeah,
game.
apparently that's really good. I don't know. I've not played it, but
Yeah, it would be cool. I'm into the mystery stuff. I love it.
Oh, Outstar. Sorry.
we have
reading
just
chat.
we have just received an Outstar Walker raid on the stream, which is really
Aha!
nice. Thank you very much.
3 people and Outstar.
That's because she heard
Coincidence
you. She heard
after
you.
we mention her.
She heard you dissing her games.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. You're like, so
What's
then I
that?
hate. Well, the thing
Hi,
I don't like
it's
about
Frozen
Outstar,
now.
she
I
appears.
said the artwork was cool, and that's the part she did. So
It's true. You
Great
did say the artwork
pickaxes.
is cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's what the game is remembered for. Fantastic pickaxes.
That's
Yeah,
Minecraft.
so we've waffled on quite extensively about the releases on GOG recently. So personally, my favorite section is the what we've been playing section. Now, essentially, we'll just sort of go around the virtual table and talk about what games we've been playing. And because I'm a nice dude, I'm gonna let our special guest go first. So, Chris, what have you been playing recently?
take a guess. Is it
I'm actually a
Stasis?
terrible person in the game industry because I don't really actually play a lot of games.
Okay, so I'm hanging up on him.
Yeah, bye. Nice.
I mean, the last game I bought on Steam was Fallout, and I've put a Fallout 4, and I put about 3 or 4 hours into it, and then I got distracted by work. But I have been playing lots of board games. So
Nice.
it's kind of
Board
Which
games.
board games. And I've been playing Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones board game. Which is like a good introduction to kind of get into the board game thing, and I'm slowly getting into it. And I definitely want to sort of take a look at some of the other, they've got the awesome Walking Dead ones and the Star Wars ones and that kind of thing. But in terms of games, I play Candy Crush and a bit of Fallout, and otherwise like I make games. That like making games is my sort of game.
Could I just point out, I play Candy Crush and Fallout.
It's like the two massive
Candy Crush,
extremes.
Fallout, and then I make a horror game.
Yes.
My
That's-
dad told me yesterday that he's almost beaten Candy Crush. He's like 25 levels away from beating the whole game.
That game is
Wow.
beatable. You can beat
There's
Candy Crush?
thousands of levels in that game, and he's not spent a dime on it.
Wow,
He's been playing it
that is
since
an
he was-
achievement.
He's persistent.
That is an achievement.
It's like a couple months ago, he's like, I'm kind of tired of Candy Crush. I'm like, well, no, really?
You've been playing it for like.
I'm kind of tired of hitting
years.
myself on the head with a hammer, son. Why is that, Dad?
will
Well,
not stop.
It's his excuse is that it's free. So
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough.
lovely.
you can't. I mean, I can't disagree with that.
It's true. No, it's very true. You can't. Yeah. So Mr. Bischoff has not actually been playing anything essentially other than Candy
He's been
Crush.
playing
Essentially,
Stasis.
Candy
Why don't you tell
Crush,
us about
Fallout
Stasis?
4, and Stasis.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
then-
actually that brings me to a question. Sorry if I have had developer streams before, and I always like to ask developers if they actually get to play their own game and enjoy it, or if they are only just doing the work on the game and then try to get away from it in their free time.
It's so hard because like when it's hard to sort of like divorce yourself from the game. And I think it'll honestly be probably a few years before I play the game to actually enjoy it. But I do play the game probably about once a week when doing bug fixing, because every time we do like an update in Steam, I play through the entire game on every version that we actually have. And we're currently sort of looking at porting the game to other platforms. So I've been putting together just packages for the port houses to actually see what they can actually do with that. I've been playing it there. Okay. But in terms of actually playing the game to enjoy it, when the game was released, I did sit down for about 6 hours and I played the game sort of on release day, trying to put my mind into the mind of a player to actually sort of play it. The thing with an adventure game is that you don't really get a lot of emergent gameplay. So it's not a case of like, let me try this out and see what happens here. It's just a case of, is this going to break the game? No, it's not. So let me try something else.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a while before I can kind of objectively look at the game and sort of play it
Okay.
as a player kind of thing.
Logical.
Okay,
Cool.
cool. So, Pieman, what have you been playing recently?
I've been playing a game that I never thought I'd ever play in my life. So last week,
Candy Crush.
I have never played Candy Crush on principle, but last week I actually picked up the Tom Clancy Encore bundle from HumbleBundle.com.
Oh, wow.
Now, there are a couple Tom Clancy games that are on GOG.com. There's the original Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, and the original Splinter Cell. And I've been Splinter Cell. And I've been interested in trying to play those, but I've never really played those games. The only ones of Tom Clancy games I ever played were the Vegas games on my PS3. They're the first games that I ever played online. And I love those games. And then I find out I'm looking into the original games. Everyone who likes the original games hates those games because they are nothing like the originals. So, great, my favorite games in the series are the ones everybody hates. Big surprise. But I went back to try to play them. I didn't realize before I bought it that you only get the Uplay version of all of the games, which is terrible. But I wanted to try out the games before I streamed it, and I don't like asking for a game that I don't know if I'm going to want to stream because I never played these. I installed the original Rainbow Six, I installed the original Splinter Cell, and I installed the original Ghost Recon. Out of the three of those, Ghost Recon's the only one that works. Rainbow Six crashes on launch. Splinter Cell gives an error on launch, and Ghost Recon actually works. I've Googled to try to fix the other ones. At the moment, I would like to start a segment called Pieman's Trip Through Uplay Support System, in which I'm asking them how to get these games to work.
Oh, please make that a series on your YouTube channel. Please.
It's not going well.
I picture that there's a drop-down box next to the comment box that you send into one of these things, and it's kind of like, who are you? And it's got like a little thing where you can put like other, or then Mega Pieman has his own line in the drop-down menu that you just click, and it goes to its own dedicated part of Ubisoft that is like, we got another one. They're like, all right, guys, and it's like this room of like 100 people, dun 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 dun, like all typing, trying to get him
Alarms start going off.
Yeah, exactly. It's the most active part of the company.
With when it comes to Rainbow Six, Christie X4, who's a longtime viewer at GOG.com, told me to use a program called DG Voodoo to get it to work. That didn't work. So I'm still trying to go through support to get that to work. But I've been playing Ghost Recon, and surprisingly, I really freaking like Ghost Recon. It is super tense. I expected to hate this game because I'm not a big fan of realism when it comes to games. I like arena shooters. I like the arcadey kind of shooters when you jump around and you shoot rockets everywhere and things blow up and they're a lot of fun. Like Painkiller is one of my favorite, if not my favorite games that I've ever played. But because of that, I played a little bit of Arma 2 because I bought it for DayZ at some point, and that game was kind of cool until the tutorial, you can't finish it because it bugs out on you. It's buggy as crap. But I expected to hate Ghost Recon. And the first time I played it, I did hate it. But then it came back to it, and it is a lot of fun just because of how tense the situations are. Everybody dies in one shot. And if you mess up, you're going to mess up big time.
Yeah.
But
very true.
Figuring out how to deal with the fact that, okay, this guy's dead. If you're a sniper and you're on one of my teams, you're dead, period. That's just how it happens.
Great. I'm signing up. How do you do it? No, we're going to be on this guy's team. God, no! Just throws himself off a building.
It's a really cool mix of ideas. It feels like it would work better multiplayer when you have other people controlling your group, because the way that it works is you control one character from first person, and you have two other teams of however many characters that you control from a map. The map's not that great because it's not that detailed, so it's difficult to try to move them around. And the AI in the game, while it's good, it's also bad. If they're not looking in the direction that they're getting shot from, they will not turn to look where they're getting shot from, and they'll just die. They don't care.
AI.
They do not care. The bad guys have just about as bad of AI. I've sniped like 5 of them right next to each other, literally, while they're standing there not moving, and nobody gave a crap.
Earl, I don't feel like we talk much anymore. In the last 10 seconds, you haven't said an absolute word. I used to be I could count. It just falls over.
Yeah. Trying to have a really heartfelt moment.
But I think my favorite situation that I've had in that game was, I think right now I'm at mission 6 of 15. I just finished mission 5, which took place in a city. And in that mission, you have to capture a bank, capture your extraction point, as well as investigate a crashed helicopter.
Yeah.
And I was able to figure out, it's really cool how big the levels are, because you can go like all over the place, find shortcuts and everything to try to get around all of the enemies. And I got to the point where I completed the objective of investigating the crash site. And I'm walking around the crash site. I've taken out any enemies that have spawned because I've completed that objective. And while this is all going on, I'm in a city that's getting like attacked. So in the background, you'll hear like bombs going off or whatnot. And I got my character lying on the ground, sniping a couple dudes, trying not to die, and have my other teams covering me while I'm working my way back to an alley. And I hear what sounds like a tank. And there are tanks in this game, and the way tanks work in Ghost Recon is if you don't have anti-tank rockets, you can't do anything about them.
Very true.
So if you don't start a mission prepared for it, you're not going to be prepared for it. But my thought process is, okay, the town's under attack. There's planes going overhead and bomb sounds all over the place. You can't tell me they would spawn a tank at this area. None of the briefing had anything to do with a tank. So I'm thinking that's background noise. And then I'm walking away, and I hear one of my backup guys say, armor spotted in the area. And there's a freaking tank in the level that spawns at the end after I've taken out everybody else that I am not prepared for, and it just kills everybody on my team but 3 guys who somehow are able to run away.
Freaking games, man.
It was the most intense thing that I have had in a game in a long time, because when the tank shows up, I'm like, okay, everybody just run to the exit. Hopefully you'll get there before you die, because I'm just going to the exit. I'm not even going to deal with it. The AI got caught on the stairs and got shot.
Cool story, bro. Cool story.
It's really, really cool.
Okay, so moving swiftly on, taking control of this.
I don't think I'll ever
unicycle of conversation right now.
I don't think I'd ever stream it, because I don't think it's a game that would be good to stream. But if you haven't played Ghost Recon,
I'm riveted. I've got to admit, if you streamed it, I'd watch it just for that one scenario.
I would watch it. I would want to see it.
If you've never played Ghost Recon and you're into tactics and you're in that kind of a thing, definitely play it. I haven't played Future Soldier or any of the other games in the series, but the first one. And
no, I've played Future Soldier and I enjoyed that quite a lot, to be perfectly honest. But the other ones, like even like Rainbow Six, even Vegas, sorry, I didn't really get into them because I don't know, they didn't really do much for me. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Thank you very much. Arv, what have you been playing recently?
So on my channel, I've been playing Star Wars: The Old Republic. Classicor has been helping me by sending me lightsaber crystals on occasion. But I decided I was kind of Star Wars hyped. I was playing Assassin's Creed 4 on my channel, and I liked it. And then I saw The Force Awakens, and I realized for the first time after seeing something that wasn't Child Drek, that I really liked Star Wars. And I was like, I had forgotten how much I liked it, and I wanted to play some. So I pretty much was like, well, where is Knights of the Old Republic 3? Not finding it. I went to Star Wars The Old Republic, which is the closest that you can get at the moment. And I've been playing through Jedi Knight thing there, which has been a tremendous amount of fun. And the story, it's typical, very good storytelling from BioWare. And that's been a blast. So I've been having a great time with the Star Wars stuff, and will continue to do so. I am going to be playing Undertale next week on my channel as well with the my voiceover folks, which are affectionately called the ArVocalists. They're going to be doing a voiceover of the first part of Undertale, so that's going to be awesome. Nice. And then D&D sessions, because I do a regular D&D session on my stream as well. So those have been kind of the big focus. And I do want to say, well, we have a minute, that since a lot of us are connected to this, we had our first Arvanaut Idol contest, or the first Arvanaut Idol semifinalists, and among the semifinalists, and by semifinalists there's 8 because each semifinal has 4 people in it. So of that group of 8, we had Classicor, we had MegapiemanPHD, we had Pyron Jade, and we had Memories in 8-Bit, and MatCat Plays. So there were 5 GOG stream team people, and then 3 non-GOG stream team people, and it's a short story flash fiction contest. 2 weeks from now is when we're going to be having the semifinal and final round. So great job, people people who were involved with that. Oh, and on GOG itself, I've been playing Ravenloft Strahd's Possession, which has been fun. I am, however, glad that it's just about over. I liked it, but I've had about enough of clunky UI and everything else.
I just want to see one final vendor at the end of the game. One final.
Yeah, I just want one like more like dungeons, but I am in the very last portion of it. So that's awesome. I'm looking forward to finishing that, and then I'm going to be playing Wasteland 2 on Pen and Pixels. So it'll basically be the Wasteland 2 show for about 8 months, because that's, I imagine, how long it's going to take me to get through it. But I will, in the middle of it, again, if this Agatha Christie thing comes out, I might take a break to do that. But I'm going to focus on those things. So Swatter and D&D and Arvanot Idol and Undertale on my channel, and on GOG, Ravenloft, and soon to be Wasteland 2.
Cool.
When you say Star Wars: The Old Republic, do you mean the MMO?
No, Pi. I mean the single-player experience that should have been Knights of the Old Republic 3, which is sometimes referred to. I see these people running around with names like Darth Epic XX Smiley Face, and I just assume that those are NPCs that were left out in the beta test, and I just kind of ignore them and continue with my own single-player experience. Okay.
Those names could be from
the
George
MMO.
Lucas.
Yes, they could.
Yeah,
Yes.
MMO.
Yes.
I'm just making sure we're not talking about two different games here, because you made me rather confused when you're talking about it from a single player perspective, and I didn't know that game had a single player perspective.
It's a single-player game. God damn it, Pi.
I'm just making sure we're on the same page.
You can actually play it very well in single player.
Sigh. Yes. Anyway,
Wow,
that's the Old Republic
was
3.
much more powerful than I
RuneScape,
imagined. That
so.
scared the crap out of me.
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Okay, cool. So a lot of Star Wars: The Old Republic, and also your stuff that you're currently streaming on GOG. Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. Right now, Classicor. What have you been playing?
Funnily enough, also a lot of Star Wars in different iterations.
You keep giving this guy all your crystals.
No, actually not all of them. Just sending a few while I was crafting. Never mind. At this point, I basically stream 4 times a week. Twice on GOG and twice co-op stuff on Grail Gamers channel. So I mainly get around to play the games that I play on stream. So what I played basically was Mountain Blade Warband for my Monday stream, which had so many tech difficulties that I decided to switch it over to something Star Wars. Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR 2, thank you. I'm going to do a little mod spotlight on the Ultimate Saber mod, which is very cool. So I'm going to do that for the rest of the month. I am also streaming on Thursdays on GG, my strategy show, which finally got a name. I call it Classicor's Conquest because it's such a silly name. And I'm playing Empire at War against Star Wars on that with the Awakening of the Rebellion mod, which is a lot of fun. It's a very good mod. It helps out. It's a bit weird that some of the sound files are in German because it's a German developer team, and it's the open beta version, so not the final version. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I do co-op stuff on Grail Gamers channel. So on Mondays on midnight Central European time, we play Star Trek Online, which I've been playing since the beta 5 years ago. So I kind of know the game. And actually,
that's an MMO.
That is definitely
that's an MMO. Since you wanted to find one, there's your target. It's a target-rich environment right there.
How close is it to classic RuneScape, so I can actually put it in context here?
How many starship battles were in RuneScape?
There were
in the secret area.
I don't know. I don't think so.
expected to say,
If there were, I hadn't got to
3.
them. I remember there being cows in RuneScape, and I think I killed a unicorn.
The cows kind of look like starships in RuneScape anyway. Hey-oh! Unfortunate graphic hit.
Anyway, on Thursdays we also play Star Wars: The Old Republic, just to get back on track. Actually, I'm going to go over there after the GOGCast. Last week we started a Sith run, so we co-op Sith stuff in the Old Republic. Also a lot of fun. So yeah, basically that's like 3 Star Wars games already. And something that I should mention that I'm spending time on. It's not technically a game, but it is kind of on topic because I finally need to get around to finish this. It's called The Third Sign by author you probably won't have heard of him. It's a Gregory R. Wilson. It must be a Russian.
That guy.
He's. I have to say, kid's got talent. So
for our audio listeners, Classicor is holding up a book.
I am holding up a book.
It's a book which looks very familiar to me.
Yes.
I just thought I'd mention it. Started reading on Christmas. That's my special Christmas thing. Then I left the book at my mother's place when I visited her. So I recently picked it up, and now I need to get through it. But But yeah, that's basically the gaming stuff. And speaking of Star Wars, I'm sorry I have to.
Ah,
Yeah,
nice.
fair enough.
And I have
For the audio
another-
listeners, he's currently erecting
I'm,
lightsabers.
I'm using lightsabers to geek out. No, yeah, that's basically so a lot of the streaming games.
Cool.
Writing stuff in preparation for Half Idle to get back into practice, and
Good
that
stuff.
Gregori guy.
Good stuff.
Nice.
What are you playing, sir?
Wow.
Yeah, Mike.
No one's asked me that question before. In the whole 2 episodes we've done, essentially, I've not been playing a lot. When I have been playing games, I've been playing Don't Starve and Rogue Legacy, both of which are available on GOG.
Mike has been playing the game of getting his internet to work.
Yeah.
Too soon, Pie.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Yeah,
Can't be lost.
that's still a little sore. So I'm gonna ignore that one and hang up on you.
That's his roguelike.
Yeah, pretty much.
Randomly generate.
I am.
Yeah, procedurally generated. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got procedurally generated
Internet.
internet. Good grief.
Don't badmouth the internet; it'll go down again.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Actually, I probably shouldn't. Let's quickly move on. Right. So we've basically covered everything that we've all been playing recently, which is, I've got to admit, probably my favourite section of the podcast. Other than, obviously, talking to our lovely community. Now, don't forget, you
Smooth.
can... Thank you. You can... That's why I do this for a living.
I know. This is what the experts. That's why they pay the big bucks.
Yeah. I wear the big suit.
The big $0 box.
Yeah, absolutely. I get a check for $0. Yeah,
That is
so
a big zero.
it's a
Yes,
huge zero.
they
It's
just write the
humongous.
zero
Large
really
zero.
I have to
large.
go somewhere to pick it up, just to pick it up and pay postage.
You need someone to
Like-
carry
it's like
it
You
for
have to
one
you.
of
pay
those-
postage on the $0 check they send you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the publisher clearinghouse or large check from Happy Gilmore when he
Yep.
won the contest, but it just got a big zero on
Just a
it.
big zero.
Right, so we're going to move on to community questions now. Earlier on
worry
today,
about
we
that.
sent out some tweets on social media, or tweets on Twitter, should I say, because that's the social media platform. And we're getting a lot of questions from GOG community members and fans of GOG, basically asking about specific games that will be released on GOG. Now, people are asking, you know, when will this game be released? When will that game be released? That sort of thing. And it's very clear. I mean, we can try and answer them, but essentially we'll all just sort of sit here and go, I don't know, maybe not. Essentially, the official word is, you know, the GOG always, or GOG always try to get as many games as they can, but it's not always easy and it's not always possible. So essentially the default answer is always double check the upcoming or coming soon tab on the website. And also, if you do have specific games that you want, GOG actually do look at the wish list on the forums, which can be found under
Those lists help.
Yeah, the wish list. They actually apparently, I didn't realize this because I'd completely forgotten they existed. Because I'll hold my hand up in shame and say I don't generally use the GOG website much unless there is a game I specifically want to purchase or a sale on when my wallet just sort of goes, go to GOG now, and then I end up with no money. But if you go to the forums and I believe if you go to community and then I believe it's wish list, I can't quite remember, but there are several wish lists.
GOG.com/wishlist.
Yeah, GOG.com/wish list.
Yeah.
And you can vote for certain games to be kind of chosen. So yeah, do that instead of.
Also,
kind of
if
asking
you're a game developer, be sure to submit your game to GOG.com, similar to something that Chris may have done.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There is a process for that. I don't know what it is, but there is a process for that.
Do keep in mind, though, that GOG.com is curated unlike something like Steam, so your game may not get on there, but the more that games that are submitted, the more stuff we can...
Something will get through.
It's
I mean,
a process, basically. I mean, we don't have privy to what the process actually is, but it is a process.
Unfortunately,
for the
none of
games
us
being-
actually work for GOG.com, so we can't talk
Yeah.
about any of that inner workings
Also,
stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
if we knew anything, and sometimes we know when stuff might get released, I should say, there's an NDA. We couldn't tell you. we can tease you. We can tell you that we know something which we can't tell you, but we
Right.
can't tell you what we can tell you.
There was a
Even though
streamer
we-
who we refer to in codename now only as Stan, who was actually wiped from the face of the earth. Because he mentioned a game that he shouldn't have mentioned. He violated the NDA, and he was immediately wiped from existence. It's very sad. His wife and family didn't know who he was
They
anymore.
miss him so
deleted
much.
his,
We
copy
get
account.
so many emails asking where he is.
Yeah, we're like, whatever happened to that guy whose name I don't remember
We don't
anymore
even
because he's
know
been
where
wiped
he
from
is
existence, and we don't know, but we feel bad for whoever that guy or possibly woman. It might have been. I don't know.
Wasn't there a parable written about Stan?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Questions. Right. So we have.
Very true, Dizzy. Very true.
So let's go through the questions. NPK Gamer on Twitter asks, how can GOG always keep this level of awesome up? Firstly, cheers. Thanks very much. I'm taking that as a personal comment towards the stream team rather than GOG themselves. But,
Yeah.
we'll share credit.
Obviously.
It's fine.
We take that in for ourselves. We redirect to us.
Yeah. Well,
We
it
need
came to
to get
my
something
Twitter
out of this.
account, so...
I mean,
it's in
it's
our
it's a matter of continuing to have an open relationship with the community and being able to build a tremendous channel. It always comes from the very positive people. Screaming Joypad has been doing this, has been doing a great job in organizing and setting all of this up. Outstar Walker does a tremendous job as the head of the stream team, and
She does
I've
the
always
levels work.
believed that a lot of this stuff comes from the top down, and when you have the right people, then you get a lot of the right people as part of the community. So it's both bottom up from the community and also top down in terms of what the leaders do to put people in the right place. So
Isn't
I
bottoms
expect
up-
more awesome to come. That's me.
Sorry, Classical.
Yeah, I was just saying I thought bottoms up was a reference to drinking, but that's another thing.
It certainly
no,
is,
If it's about community, man, I'm all about community.
it's
That's
I
how you
think
build a
communication
community.
is
You go and
important.
get drunk with them. I've worked in games
not
for a
the
while.
worst.
It's all drinking and
thing.
debauchery.
Can't do that on Twitch.
This
They
is
will
very
shut
true.
you
Yeah,
down.
don't do it on Twitch, kids.
Right.
Don't do anything other than games on Twitch or podcasts.
Well, kids shouldn't be drinking in the first place.
This is very true.
Milk. Tea.
Drink milk.
There you go.
So
not
We gotta
on-
have our family-friendly values here on Twitch.tv/GOGCom.
that's very true. So Hailmdar Plays, one of our regulars, has asked
I need to type
through
out
Twitter,
again,
how do you feel the response from chat is when you stream and also do release streams? So I think we'll kind of answer this individually. Personally, I adore chat. I genuinely do. I've always adored chat from my very first stream after doing the 24-hour marathon and kind of being adopted by Outstar. I've adored chat and everything about it. So that's kind of my philosophy on it. Anybody else who wants to be open up towards it, feel free.
I think they're
Actually-
great. I don't understand why they put up with my nonsense. But when it comes to release streams, especially because a release, normally I have never played the game. I've installed it maybe an hour before I stream it. So, and sometimes it works.
It never shows, Pi.
Sometimes it
never
works,
shows.
sometimes it doesn't. So, I don't
keep
know
telling
why you guys show up. I really don't. But thank you.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I love. I've always loved the folks on my channel, and I love the GOG community, which is very similar, I think, to mine, and that's a lot of very smart and genuinely kind people. And obviously there are people, they have their personality quirks and all like that, like any family does. But chat is what makes this what it is. I mean, streaming to nobody is not enjoyable. Even if you're streaming to one person, having a dialogue, I think, is always important. And in a larger sense, if you develop a community over time, you can do astonishing things, I think, regardless of what the community is. And so I admire and always have respected and loved the chats for the streams that I do. And I felt I'm actually like 4.5 months in now to Pen and Pixels, which is weird because it feels like just yesterday that I started. But you guys have been great. The people sticking with me during the end of the Star Trek stream when I had that ridiculous 3-ship combat, that was epic. And it was epic in part because chat was so pumped up about it. So I
Yeah,
love
we
chat.
finally made it. It was,
You guys are the best.
Chat exploded.
Chat is badass.
I don't know how you beat that because that looked impossible.
I used the Force. Oh my God, he cross-shot, you son of a...
The internet explodes.
Yep.
That was so
I'm
amazing.
interested, actually. Chris, do you do any live streaming at all?
No, I'm telling you, I'm just sitting here and I'm listening to you guys and everything, and I feel that I'm so out of touch with the communities and with social media and that kind of thing. I do watch a lot of live streams though, and I watch a lot of Let's Plays. I'm
Yeah.
just so I don't really have time to play a lot of games. But in terms of
Chris?
actual live streaming, I've
Just-
never actually
just-
live streamed sort of anything.
Yeah.
Just come on, let's do another stream with your game. Come on, we can sort something out. It's quite
Yeah,
easy to do.
Doug, let's have our people talk
We
to
can
your
watch
people.
that back
Yes.
surgery scene
Let us
again.
tell you how it's done.
Yeah, he's doing. Yeah, nice and confident there, Classico. I like it.
It's,
No, so
so I
how do you generally kind of converse with your community, Chris?
Most of the stuff is through like Twitter and Facebook and emails and forums and that kind of thing. Things that I can sort of like get a message and sort of in the mornings I'll go through all of my messages and sort of respond to everything at once, and then I can sit with my headphones on and spend the entire day and actually work, because it can get quite intensive. So if I can do something where I can sort of block out as many distractions as possible for the longest period of time. So I prefer things that I sort of can have time to respond to.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And also, interestingly, if people want to get in contact with Chris on Twitter, it's at Stasis Game, all one word.
Yeah.
Nice.
So moving swiftly on, I think that's kind of how we react to chat and release streams. Release streams are always a bit of a funny one. Sorry, Classical.
Quickly add something because I can actually say something about
sorry.
this. We had a similar topic in a green room last night, and for me personally, the reason why I do the streams is so I can interact with chat, so I can interact with people. I mean, the GOG streams they give us a fantastic forum to talk to chat and to timed out, but that's another story. When I do the co-op stuff on a Grail Gamers channel, there's not as many viewers, but I get that interaction with Gray. So, I mean, for me, it's not, I don't gain anything from the exposure on the internet, and I don't gain any kind of fame, and I don't make any money. For me, it's just being able to do something that I enjoy and trying out things, other games maybe outside my comfort zone, and talk to other crazy people about that. And that's basically why I stream in the first place. And it is because of chat. And I get along with almost all people. And when I don't, that's natural, that's healthy. Can't always be liked by everybody.
No, absolutely. I think it's important to know, you're not going to please everybody all the time with what you play, stream, and how you act on the actual channel itself. But that being said, the GOGCon community is probably the most accepting and nicest community I've ever been a part of. To be perfectly honest, I've been a part of. I was a community manager for several different websites back in the day, for different games reviewing websites, and those were nice communities, but they had their fair number of trolls. And in fairness, it's very much a self-managing community here, and there's a lot of love floating around for different people. So.
Good crew.
We don't have any trolls here on
No, certainly not.
When-
No
when-
trolls.
Certainly not
Streamers.
one named Pyrofox.
No.
No.
No,
I think we all have our specific trolls. I think we have people who come just to troll you and me, and maybe not Mike. Everyone loves Mike.
So speaking of specific trolls, in absolutely unrelated news, KoalaMan108, who is one of my what I would consider to be one of my largest fans, mentioned on Twitter, and unfortunately, because I'm a consummate professional, I completely forgot to copy it over to the sheet. So I'm actually literally going to go on Twitter as I'm talking, because I like to talk and do things at the same time. because I'm a live streamer.
Unprofessionalism.
Right now, what you
should
don't
be
see in the audio is
ashamed.
him stretching out, like stretch.
The Sierra's getting smaller.
Pretty much, I'm going to talk like this for a moment while things load. And now things are loaded and I can carry on at a normal tempo. So KoalaMan108 basically says, what do you think about the state of the review industry and the approach of reviewing a game like a product rather than critiquing them like art? Now, I specifically, it's interesting to me, being from that background, I want to know other people's opinions. So what do other people think of this? What do you guys think?
I don't know. I do first impression reviews on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/MegapiemanPHD.
Da, 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 da.
I'm not looking at it like art. I'm looking at it as, is it a game that I enjoyed? If it's not necessarily is it a game I had fun with, even though I do like games I have fun with, is it a game that I enjoyed or that I felt like that I have something to say about it? So I don't know if that falls under review or anything like that. But
I mean,
that's how I feel that a lot of people cover that sort of a thing. If they don't have anything to say about it, then they're probably just not going to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people can walk and chew gum at the same time. I run into this because I do reviews of theater shows in New York City, and I also am an author, so I'm constantly seeing and dealing with reviews, and we do stuff on my podcast, Speculate, too. And all of those involve a certain amount of you're going to be encountering games that are, or products, whatever it is, that are intended to do different things. I don't appreciate the reviewer that goes in looking for the one true game, and then every game is sort of determined and ascertained relative to that level, because Nuclear Throne, as I said, is not my shtick. But I would never argue that the developers of Nuclear Throne were like, this game is like Gone Home in every aspect of its... Like, come on. Like, there are games that are meant to make you think. There are games that are meant to make you twitch. There are games that are meant to make you sort of, tear your hair out but feel super awesome when you've actually completed it.
Yep.
Games have different purposes and procedures. And so when we look back at games that we can all generally agree are awesome and exciting, it's because they did different things. So if someone goes in and says, this game rises to the level of art because XYZ, that's fine. And I'd like to hear about things like that, so long as we don't get the other side of it, which is, and then if I get a game which is just designed to be fun, that's illegitimate because it's not art. In the reverse order, I also don't want people to find a game that has a sort of slower pace and a more thoughtful quality and might be more artistic. I don't want those people to be sort of thrown out because a game is just supposed to be about shoot 'em up and have fun. Games are different things ultimately to different people. So if you are a reviewer who can say, I like this work for what it is attempting to do and here's what that is, giving a context, to what people are doing on the other side, that's what I think the reviewer's job is. I think the reviewer is very important, but I think the reviewer's job, I don't know what you think, Mike, but I think the reviewer's job is to establish a context, an educated context within which readers, gamers, whatever, can look at it and say, now I understand the field into which I am entering and to which I put a game of this sort, rather than this game's bad because it's a shooter or this game's good because it's art. That I'm not down with.
Absolutely.
The biggest problem with reviews is that generally they're done by one person. And no matter how much you want it not to be, your review will always be based off of your own opinions. So there's not much you can really do. I mean, especially when it comes to review scores. If you're a reviewer who gives review scores, that score is based off of what your opinion is of what that score means.
Yes.
So not everybody, it's like an 8 out of 10 might be somebody else's 5 out of 10. So
yeah.
I would say there's another problem, or I have another problem with the review culture that we currently have, if I want to use the term.
Yeah.
The problem is that we have so many people who do reviews that people try to, they want to be recognized, and they start to go away from, making those actually useful reviews to clickbait and onto making it dramatic and
Skits.
Look how cool I am and look how I can bash a game and I'm so cool because I don't like what everyone else likes, and the review itself stops being helpful. And I think a review should be helpful, should be useful, but it's very hard to actually find the good reviews because those are usually not the ones who scream the loudest or who do the more clickbaity stuff or things like that. And that's actually something that I really do have a problem with. So yeah, I wish reviews would get more useful again. Maybe people would stop trying to just get recognized and just get seen, stick out in darkness, if you will. Be fluorescent and all. Yeah, that's...
So I'm interested as to what Chris might think about this as well, because he's kind of on the other side of this. So Chris, what's your kind of take on take on how reviews are kind of handled and how the review kind of the great review machine works from your perspective?
Well, I mean, if anybody didn't like Stasis, then their opinion's completely wrong. So, I mean, I'll start off by saying...
Okay, right, sure, that's
You
obvious.
hear that, Pie?
Right.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said that one scene was
Too easy.
It is quite different, sort of coming from the developer point of view, and I see reviews very differently now that I've actually kind of released the game. But I don't mind when people sort of put their own personalities and things into reviews, because there's so many different reviews out there, and there's so many different games out there, and that kind of thing. And I think that like as a review, no one, I think nowadays is going to buy a game off of a single review. People are going to read 20, 30, 40 reviews. They're going to read a review and then they're going to go on Steam and they're going to read, all the little Steam kind of things. They're going to talk about it on Twitter. So I think that when people sort of put their own personalities into the reviews, I don't actually mind that. And, I think it's interesting if you've got somebody who like doesn't play adventure games, for example, who then reviews an adventure game, and they might give sort of a point of view of that's very different to someone who's an adventure game player. And I actually quite like seeing this sort of like the diversity that actually comes in nowadays. So I think that, there's, and it's also kind of, like, what do you count as a review? I mean, do the sort of like short Steam reviews count as reviews, or those just personal opinions? And there's sort of that level of where does personal opinion translate into professional reviewer actually saying something. But again, I think it's a case of like nowadays people don't really rely on one or two voices to see what's good or what's bad in the game. People are relying on hundreds of these different sources that are actually coming in, comments on the actual reviews, discussions and forums, and I think that in that sort of big environment that kind of gets made around games, I think it's quite informative. And I don't know sort of what side I come down on the entire, games reviewed as art versus games reviewed as a product, because I'm under no delusions that I'm making high art. I'm making little adventure games kind of thing
I agree with that. That's similar to publishing,
bring up
too.
that original question, I'm sorry to cut you off, Greg.
That's good.
But when you bring up that original question of games reviews as a product of games reviews as art, are games art? Are games art nowadays?
Yes.
Games have never been treated as art. That I'm aware of.
The way that I see games now is I see games as sort of like the maybe they're not art in the traditional sense, but I think that games are one of the truest sort of expressions of the technical culture that we actually have, because they're the perfect marriage between the technical aspects of computers and the artistic aspects of computers. And there's no other medium out there like that. And I think that if you get something like The Last of Us, and you look at The Last of Us and you compare The Last of Us to a film like The Road or something, you get the same amount of emotional appeal out of The Last of Us as you do out of The Road.
Good comparison.
And I would say very quickly that art is, by definition, art is in a way emotion represented in an aesthetic way, and writ large, right? And so the idea, and I've never understood it myself. I mean, I write and I teach for a living, and these are things that I do all the time on the literary side. But there is clearly a spectacular quality of emotion that is represented through a variety of artistic forms, and games can absolutely rise to that level. And again, I'll reference Brothers: Tale of Two Sons. I can't talk about why, but that game has one of the most extraordinary mechanical storytelling methods at the very end of it. And if you play it, and you should, it's not long, you'll know what I mean. That is extraordinary. It is artistic, and it is something which could only have been conveyed in the game form. And this is why I say you can walk and chew gum. You can enjoy games and find games to have art, to rise to the level of art. And by saying that, you do not do violence to the idea that other things are also art. So I am happy to be someone who writes and loves literature and loves music and loves all of these things, and also acknowledge that I also can find artistic value and joy out of games also. That is not, to me, a controversial statement.
The only thing I really don't like about like people who review games as art is with the whole you just don't get it statement, which is what you get with a lot of art. And you specifically get that with a lot of games. And a company like Tale of Tales, who they specifically they made The Path, they made Sunset, they made whatever that iOS game was about a flower. Very odd. I played that game. I felt like I should take a shower afterward. It was a really weird game. But they specifically make games, specifically trying to make art games, And I don't really feel that anyone who tries to make a game for the concept of it being art really has ever hit the dot.
Well, that's the case with absolutely any form of any writing you'd like. All I'll say is this: go play Journey and tell me it's not art. Good luck.
Amen.
Go play Journey and tell me it's not art.
Absolutely.
Please. Come on.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just.
Oh no, I'm not saying that to you. That's not me. That's not at all me being. It's just I get frustrated when I hear it. That's not at all what you were getting to. But I was just saying when anyone tries to force it and is like, I will now write the great piece of art.
Yeah.
You write what you write. You convey emotion. You do so with the skill and the craft that you have learned over hopefully decades of practice.
Yeah.
And that is how you produce art that has value, whether you're doing it in games, music, story, and or dance. And it has ever been thus.
No, I completely agree. I am going to have to end the question there, unfortunately, because we are running a little bit short on time. But hopefully that has answered people's questions and also given us a bit more context in regards to our thoughts and feelings about, one, the review industry at large, and two, whether or not games, are they are art. And, that's a pretty big bloody topic to cover. And that's, I think we've touched.
It's a great one.
It's fantastic. It's one of those.
Not one to
I
bring
always...
up 10 minutes before the end of the stream.
Yeah,
I know,
exactly. It's always one of those ones I always dread people talking about because you can talk about it for hours, absolutely hours.
You'll never get anywhere, but you can talk about it forever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, because of time constraints, I'm going to have to cut a couple of the questions out. But there was one question that I really, really, really wanted to ask because it's a brilliant question. It is from Gran Uncarnum, who is on Twitter, who says, "What game has had the most emotional impact on you? I started playing Persona 4G, and people told me to prepare to have my life changed." So I'm going to open this up to MegapieMan first. Have you had a game?
I don't know.
It wasn't.
I've never been emotionally connected to a game. I can say that right now. I've played a lot of games, and I've heard a lot of game stories to the point that I generally do not give a crap about your story because usually they're all the same. I'm more of a mechanics-focused person when it comes to video games because a lot of the stories tend to blend together. Even really good stories, like, Tales from the Borderlands was a really good story, but I wouldn't say it affected me emotionally. I haven't found a game that has been that interesting as of yet.
In fact,
I might find it if I play Stasis, though. I might find it if I play Stasis.
Then you'll find the true depth. Wow, it's an excellent question, and I'm just running down the list of things that I've actually streamed to get to it. I thought there were extraordinarily, for all the hate that series gets, I thought that Mass Effect hits enormously powerful emotional notes.
This guy.
I think the end of Mass Effect 2 ranks among the most epic experiences you'll have in a video game. Anyone who doesn't feel bad for the collector general is not in touch with their heart. I thought Bastion was an extraordinarily powerful emotional game, and personally, and this may just be tied into my own experience, but the game To the Moon really touched me. It's doing that on purpose. It's obviously going out of its way to do it. But for a game to sort of go into issues of autism and stuff like that, and also as a parent, not of an autistic child, I'm glad about that because I see the pain that parents have had dealing with it. But what they experience, having that represented in game, was extraordinary. And I'm not ashamed to say that I teared up at all of those games at different times. Those were extraordinarily powerful emotional moments. Also, as I mentioned, is like the fourth time, Brothers: Tale of Two Sons. That moment is really, really powerful. It hits you in the gut. Yeah.
Maybe I could. I have difficulties answering that question because I have to say I find it easier to form a emotional connection with a game that's not a PC game. Something that's going on, a tabletop game, or especially role-playing games with the right groups and I have had relationships start in role-playing game sessions and stuff like that. But a game that touched me on a personal level because it had some very touching also music is a indie game called Ephemerid. Many don't know it. It's kind of a simple game, and it's kind of like a musical that you play, except that there's no singing. You play to the music, and it's a very, very touching, very interesting combination of the gameplay and the music itself. You can get the download on Bandcamp, I believe. It's just called Ephemerid. Look it up.
Yeah.
I found that there's no specific emotion, but I reacted emotionally, physically to the combination of the art style and the story. It's a very sad, very romantic story without using any words, which is fantastic. And the music to it, that's Ephemerid. Look,
I just thought of one also very quickly. Yeah. Shadow of the Colossus, the horse. That's all I'm going to say. If you've ever played Shadow of the Colossus, the horse.
Right,
Too soon.
I'm telling you, man. Shadow of the Colossus, that game. Oh, man.
No,
And
no,
by the way, almost no dialogue there. Everything is less is more with that game. Everything is about the bond that the game explicitly and implicitly develops without you even being aware of it. It's not like you will now love this thing, but just it's something about it that builds over time. So sorry.
Absolutely. No. It's a brilliant answer, I must admit, and one that I share myself, and especially your comments about Mass Effect, Mass Effect 2, and also the ending of Mass Effect 3 as well. I know a lot of people hated on that quite a lot, but I will go into my personal thoughts and feelings afterwards. But I wanted to know what Chris had to say in regards to this.
Games that have sort of touched me kind of emotionally. I think the most recent one is The Last of Us. I mean, I just loved that. But a game that sort of has stayed with me for years and years was Star Control 2. Not necessarily on an emotional level, but just sort of the world and the environment and the stories and the characters. I've honestly been seemingly obsessed with that game for pretty much my entire gaming life. And I actually, at GDC last year, I went to the classic post-mortem, and I actually met Fred and Paul, and we sat afterwards, my brother and I, we sat for about an hour talking to them. It was probably one of the most kind of weirdest emotional experiences of my adult life, to talk to these people that had shaped so much of how I saw stories as a child. So definitely I'd put Star Control 2 right up there with Mass Effect and with all these story-based games.
Interesting choice. I like it. Myself personally, as I've said, Mass Effect 2, there was a specific scene where your entire group all bands together in Mass Effect 2, and that kind of that got me right in the chest, tight chest, tight throat, that sort of thing. There was sorry, Classicor, I'll let you butt in just one second. Other than that, there was a game on the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, called Suikoden.
Hell yeah, Suikoden.
Fantastic game.
100 people plus.
Absolutely, yeah.
1 and 2.
And there was a scene where it's okay to give away spoilers for games that are nearly 20 years old now. There's a scene where a very prominent character in it dies, and you're not expecting it. And I cried for about an hour after that because I could not emotionally. I was quite young at the time, and emotionally, my brain could not comprehend with the fact that somebody so close to the protagonist could die. Other than that, Silent Hill 2, because after that I had to stop playing games for about a week because I had to think about what I'd just seen.
Oh, wow.
I think the biggest problem that I've had when it comes to stories with games is that I realize it's a story in a game. I realize it's a game, and that's why I really don't... I mean, when I was a kid, I was one of those kids who every now and then you might get a good game, but for the most part, the games I played were bought in a pack of 5 on the discount shelf, and they were all terrible. They all had their own story, and it was all garbage.
Is that why you don't like hidden item games? Because they always had one of them in it.
I remember I had a lot of DS games. The worst game I've ever played is Peter Jackson's King Kong on the DS. It looked like it was worse than Tomb Raider. I had no idea what I couldn't get past like the first 5 seconds of that game.
That's weird because on console that was actually a really good game.
The PC version and the non-DS versions were pretty good. The DS version is garbage.
Okay, so quickly, Classical, what were you going to say a second ago?
Something that it's silly, but since we were talking about the Old Republic, my consular was recently proclaimed a Jedi Master. That was touching.
Nice. Excellent.
Outstandingly epic and individual. By the way, someone mentions Final Fantasy VII in chat, and I do want to say, again, another game that gets a lot of irrational hipster hate these days.
Aerith dies!
But I like Final Fantasy VII, and I have to say, at the time that it happened, when it first happened, that was enormously shocking. It was not something that was done often. It wasn't that it never happened, but it was not often done, and as a sort of overall impact, that was a moment. If you didn't come out of that being like, Sephiroth, you son of a... I mean, you were so angry at that point.
You had a real reason to hate him after that.
You had some real reason for that. So again, I understand it's not as good as I get it, but I'm just saying that there is something to be said for the way that sort of struck a chord in me, at that time. So I do want to give a little shout out to 7.
Absolutely.
The problem I have with that, I've never played 7, and the problem I have with that is I've never played 7, but that's all I know about 7 because everybody spoiled it.
Yep.
But I have the same problem with that I have with like BioShock and Borderlands. You die, you respawn, you keep going. In the world of Final Fantasy, the Phoenix Down exists. So nobody ever
Yeah.
actually dies in Final Fantasy, and then they kill off a character that for some reason you can't bring back to life.
It is a bit of a logic hole, I must admit.
I mean,
where you just sort of like,
in
well,
Might
why don't you just
Magic,
do that? I've been
revive-
resurrecting you guys all game.
Reviving people is in
Because
so many
Sephiroth.
games.
Yeah, because
Listen, you can't
reasons.
just go
The
around
concept of a
because
character
reasons.
being fully dead
Never
just
mind your
doesn't make
logic.
sense to me. Because you reload the last checkpoint, or
Yeah.
you get the reviving item,
Yeah.
or you go to the chapel and bring him back.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna end this train ride to hell quite soon. Essentially, I wanted to thank absolutely everybody who has joined me on the actual podcast and also in chat and on Twitch and wherever you may be listening to our wonderful voices. So, firstly, MegapiemanPHD, thank you very much.
I think I made a lot of people very mad with what I just said about Final Fantasy VII.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Judge me, I dare you.
Arv, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for sharing some of your opinions on games today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it, and thanks, guys.
Classicor, it's always a pleasure. It's never a chore to have you on. Thank you very much.
This was fun, and keep lying to me like that, I might believe you. But this was fun.
Also, you can check him out at Stasis Game on Twitter. It is one half of the team behind the game Stasis, available on GOG. Chris Bischoff, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, guys, and go and buy my game because I want to make more of them. So.
Yes, go buy his
Go
game
do it.
so he can fund a sequel.
Go buy our books and follow all of us, by the way. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
Make sure you do that.
Yeah, you've got our Twitter handles on screen, so please go follow us. Please, because it validates our existence. So I'm going to open up a raffle. We're going to basically close out the stream. The raffle will continue to be active, and in about 5 minutes, I will close the raffle within chat. But I'll still be in chat, so don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. But yeah, we will sign off. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody, and we will see you same bat time, same bat channel next week. Bye, everyone. Wave to you.